I found the receipt by accident. It was buried under old batteries and takeaway menus in the kitchen junk drawer. A simple slip of paper, folded twice. Dinner for two. A high-end restaurant we only visited on special occasions. The date hit me first. 3 weeks ago. That night, my wife had told me she was out with a colleague. A work thing. She came home late, smelled like perfume that wasn't hers, kissed my cheek, and went straight to bed. I believed her. Or maybe I just chose to. Now, the receipt sat in my hand, heavy like a confession. My name is Daniel. I'm 41. I built my logistics company from the ground up while my wife, Sarah, worked in corporate HR. We have been married for 15 years. We have 2 amazing kids, a beautiful house in the suburbs. From the outside, we looked like the perfect couple, living the dream. But that small piece of paper cracked the entire picture. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I started to watch. I listened. I began to notice all the little things I'd conveniently ignored before the constant late nights. The sudden password changes on her phone and laptop, her phone always placed face down on the table. Whenever I asked a simple question like where she'd been, her answers came back just a little too fast, a little too rehearsed. It felt like she was reading from a script. A week later, I found another receipt. Same restaurant, different date. That was the moment I knew I couldn't keep pretending. I hired a private investigator. It was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. I hated myself for it, for the mistrust it represented, but I couldn't live in the dark anymore. I needed to know the truth, no matter how painful it was. And the truth, it turned out, didn't take long to surface. She wasn't meeting colleagues for work dinners. She was meeting her boss. There were hotel receipts, always midweek. Always the same one near the airport. The investigator's report was thorough. They arrived separately and left together. The photos were clear, intimate, and absolutely undeniable. They had been doing this for 6 months. 6 months she had been lying to my face, living a double life. I waited until the kids were spending the weekend at their grandparents' house before I finally confronted her. It felt like the calm before a hurricane. She was in the kitchen, casually sipping her morning coffee, scrolling on her phone as if she hadn't just completely shattered our entire life. I walked over and dropped the folder with the photos and receipts on the kitchen counter. The thud was the only sound in the room. She looked up, her eyes scanned the contents, and her face went pale, but she didn't deny it. She didn't even try. Instead, she let out a long, tired sigh and said something that will be burned into my memory forever. I just want to live for myself now. There was no apology, no remorse, not a single tear, just a cold, selfish justification for her betrayal. She went on to tell me how I was always working, how I was never emotionally present for her, that her boss, this other man, made her feel seen, made her feel alive. She was trying to spin the narrative, to make her affair somehow my fault. I just stood there and listened quietly, letting her say everything she needed to say. When she finally finished, all I said was, "That's fine. You're free to live for yourself. Just not in my house and not on my money." Her expression changed instantly. At first she laughed, a short, sharp, disbelieving laugh, as if I were bluffing. But I wasn't. The house was in my name, bought years before we were married. The business was mine, built with my own sweat and sleepless nights. Most of our savings were in accounts that were solely mine. And we had a prenuptial agreement, something she'd once laughed off as a silly formality she never took seriously. Reality hit her hard. She packed a single bag that night and left, still clinging to this delusion that she would somehow win in the end, that the courts would side with her. The very next morning I was in my lawyer's office, laying out the facts. What followed was an ugly, drawn-out battle. She tried every trick in the book. She filed a false police report, claiming I was abusive. A desperate attempt to get a restraining order and kick me out of my own home. She tried to freeze bank accounts she didn't even have legal access to. She even tried to turn our own children against me, feeding them lies, but facts are stubborn things. The evidence was overwhelming. The affair, the hotel bills, the money she had spent on her boss using our joint account, it was all documented, clear as day. The judge was not impressed with her tactics. Given the circumstances and her clear attempts to manipulate the system, Temporary custody of the children was granted to me. And that's when her perfect new life began to completely unravel. The boss, the man who supposedly made her feel so alive, wanted nothing to do with the scandal. The moment lawyers and police reports became part of the picture, he vanished. He dropped her, blocked her number, and had her replaced at work. He acted as if she never even existed. Suddenly, the man she had risked everything for was gone, and she was left with nothing. That's when she came back. She showed up at the door, begging, crying, and apologizing. She said she had made a terrible mistake, but as I looked at her, I felt nothing. The woman I had loved, the woman I had built a life with, was already gone. The person standing in front of me was a stranger. The divorce was finalized 8 months later. She walked away with very little. No house, no share in the business, and only limited, supervised visitation with the kids to start. Her reputation was damaged, her career stalled. I didn't celebrate. There was nothing to celebrate. Instead, I focused on what mattered, my kids. We sold the big house and moved to a smaller, cozier home. It was a fresh start for all of us. We went to therapy together and individually. We had honest, difficult conversations. We started the long, slow process of healing.